Disturbing events that almost ended humanity from Visual Venture.
You had friends who were building safe spaces for nuclear fallout in their backyards. They were stockpiling rations. They were stockpiling water.
Y2K is the first end-of-the-world prophecy in history where something will definitely happen on the predicted date, and you don't have to have religion to believe.
Up to maybe 60 to 70% of the population died.
I thought Y2K was the shit you wear.
It's
I thought that was like
bonkers.
It was like a clothing style.
Saved the world from nuclear war has passed away.
Hollywood movies about the end of the world sometimes aren't fiction. Humanity has come close to extinction many times, and most people have no idea. In this video, we'll explain.
Buddy, COVID was a little bit bigger. Some of us would have been donezo. I'm gonna be for real. Dude, COVID had me in a headlock in my bed for 2 weeks.
Or disturbing events that almost ended humanity. From deadly plagues to malfunctioning weapons, we'll relive all the terrifying moments that nearly wiped us out. So, I want to thank you guys because we hit 1.5 million subscribers. The new goal is 2.5 million by the end of 2026. It is an absolutely crazy goal, so it would mean
do everything I can to help
and I will
you.
do my very best
I love you,
to
Visual
put out
Venture.
the best videos I possibly can for you. I'm Visual Venture, and you are.
I appreciate you, VV. Thank
Today,
you.
the world almost exploded. In 1961, the world nearly ended because a secret military operation went wrong. The operation was meant to keep people safe, but when it backfired, it almost caused the disaster it was meant to prevent.
Midway through the 20th century, two superpowers prepared for a conflict which might have ended life on the planet.
Here's how it happened. In the 1950s, tension was growing between two global powers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Each side feared the other would strike first. To intimidate one another, both nations built extremely powerful nuclear weapons. But instead of creating peace, those weapons created paranoia. American leaders feared a surprise attack at any moment. They wanted a way to respond instantly if war broke out. So the military came up with a way to stay prepared at all times. But it was a dangerous plan. They decided to put nuclear bombs on planes and keep those planes flying 24 hours a day.
America had a
What? I'm sorry, unless you guys got some Bluetooth, that sounds dangerous as is. You're leaving the life of millions in the hands of one button and one guy flying that plane. All it takes is that guy in that plane flying above 24 hours to just go, this is hour 16 of this shift. Honestly speaking, I'm fucking done. He slams down on the button, we are all cooked. Holy shit.
dozen B-52s in the air at all times, ready to strike the Soviet Union at a moment's notice.
If war started, the bombers would already be in the air. All they would need was the order to attack. The planes could even refuel mid-air, allowing them to stay airborne for hours. But this strategy came with a huge risk. If one of those planes crashed, the nuclear bombs would crash with it, and that would be devastating. In 1961, that nightmare scenario became real. On January 24th that year, a plane took off from an Air Force base in North Carolina. It was carrying 2 nuclear bombs. Each one had the explosive power of 3.8 million tons of dynamite. The flight began without trouble. Then the crew noticed a serious issue.
They had this huge fuel leak. They lost 19 tons of fuel in 2 minutes. Something was really bad wrong with that thing.
Fuel was pouring out of the plane. Without fuel, the aircraft would fall from the sky. And with 2 nuclear bombs on board, a crash would be catastrophic.
The plane was ordered to return to Seymour Johnson for an emergency landing. When the aircraft had descended to about 10,000 feet, the pilots were unable to control it in steady flight.
The pilot flew
boy,
as
we're
fast
done
as he could,
squared.
but it wasn't fast enough.
Fuck.
The fuel ran out before they could reach the base. The crew tried to eject. 5 escaped. 2 didn't make it. As the plane fell, it began to break apart mid-air. Both nuclear bombs separated from the aircraft.
The bad news was there were 2 nuclear bombs aboard that plane that were blown out of the bomb bay as if they were launched in an attack.
Luckily, both nukes were fitted with parachutes. One nuke drifted down and became tangled in a tree in North Carolina.
There was explosive power greater than all the bombs ever used on this planet hanging from the trees in Pharaoh.
The bomb squad arrived and secured the weapon. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But there was still one more bomb missing. The second bomb was not as lucky. Its parachute failed to open. The bomb slammed into the ground at full speed. By some miracle, it didn't explode. That was because the impact damaged key internal parts and stopped it from detonating. But that didn't mean the threat was over. The bomb penetrated the ground and was stuck underground. The military rushed to try to get it out.
We started digging first with shovels and then realized this thing has gone way, way deep. Shovels aren't going to cut it.
More crews arrived with heavy equipment. They dug until they finally reached the weapon. Their first priority was to check whether it was armed.
He calls up from out of the hole. He says, "Hey, Lieutenant, I just found the arm safe switch." I said, "Good." He says, "No, not good. It's on arm."
When the nuke fell, it began its detonation sequence. Almost everything required for an explosion was already activated, except for one switch. If that switch flipped, a nuclear explosion would have happened right there in North Carolina. Eventually, the military recovered much of the weapon. However, some portions of the weapon containing
North
uranium
Carolina was going to become
They were
Gone
buried
Carolina
too
real
deep
quick.
to be removed safely. To prevent anyone from digging it up, the government purchased part of the site. It was a close call. If either bomb exploded, millions of lives would have been lost. Even worse, the blast might have been mistaken for an enemy attack. US leaders might have responded by launching nukes at the perceived enemy. The other side would have responded the same way. That chain reaction could have triggered a global nuclear war, and that could have caused a worldwide catastrophe. But life went on, and most people never knew how close we came to the end of humanity. This next event wiped out entire cities off the map, and it was invisible. The illness that wiped out a continent. You've heard about many different deadly diseases, but the bubonic plague was on a different level. Eventually, people started calling it the Black Death, because once someone caught it, they were as good as gone. The outbreak was so severe that many believed
we got a cure for this yet? Please tell me we do.
To understand how one infection nearly destroyed humanity, we need to go back to where it began. In the 1300s, ships were the
Black Death is what they used to call me in high school. Let me shut my ass up. Oh, keep playing the video? Urge you. Hey, YouTube, would you like to like and subscribe, please? Just throwing it up in the air.
main way people traveled and traded. When a ship arrived at the port, it usually meant something good was coming. But in October 1347, 12 trading ships arrived in Sicily, and they were carrying death. When inspectors boarded the ships, they found bodies everywhere. The few sailors still alive could barely move. They were infected with a strange disease from another part of the world, and now they brought it to Italy. That illness had many names, but most people called it the bubonic plague. Authorities tried to stop the spread by isolating the sick sailors, but the sailors weren't the real threat. The ships were full of rats, and those rats carried infected fleas.
The bubonic plague is spread by infected fleas that live on the backs of rats. The rats stow away on ships and live within close proximity to humans.
The rats left the ships and entered the city. From there, the disease spread fast. Some were infected through flea bites. Others caught it after touching someone who was infected.
Once it kind of gets into you, you can spread it to other people.
This wasn't a regular illness.
She looked like a skinwalker.
60%
Hello, madam.
of infected people passed away. That meant for every 10 people who got sick, only 4 survived.
Up to maybe 60 to 70% of the population died, which is massive. It's absolutely bonkers.
Doctors rushed to find a cure, but they didn't even understand the disease.
What also aided in the transmission of the disease was the lack of medical knowledge. For most of human history, the cause of illnesses, germs, was unknown.
Still, people refused to give up. They tried everything to survive. For instance, many believed the plague was a punishment from God. They tried to earn forgiveness. Groups of people whipped themselves in public, marching from town to town. They believed self-punishment would bring mercy. Eventually, so many people joined these rituals that the Pope had to order them to stop. Another story began spreading around that time. It was about 4 thieves who robbed the homes of the sick. Somehow they were able to get near the infected without catching the disease. The thieves claimed they protected themselves by drinking vinegar mixed with herbs. They also rubbed the mixture on their skin. The thieves were eventually caught, and legend says they traded the recipe in exchange for mercy. That mixture became known as 4 thieves vinegar. At one point, people even believed money carried the disease, so they began washing money with vinegar. But none of these remedies worked. The plague continued to spread.
The plague exploded all across Italy and quickly spread along trade routes across the entire Mediterranean and Europe.
Entire villages were wiped out. Thousands of farmers passed away. With no one left to work the fields, crops were never harvested. Food began to run out. So even people who avoided the plague ended up starving. The plague returned again and again over many years. Graves went from hundreds to thousands to millions. Doctors never stopped trying to find a cure, but they needed to protect themselves while treating patients. So during later plague outbreaks, doctors wore long cloaks and bird-like masks. They even stuffed herbs inside the masks to protect them from breathing in the disease. Over time, doctors noticed something important. Isolating the sick slowed the plague down. Quarantine became the only effective means of stopping the spread of the plague.
Authorities in Italy declared that every person with plague be taken out of the city into the fields to die or to recover.
And as they did that, the plague subsided. When it was over, Europe felt hollow.
The BBC says an estimated 25 million people, over a third of Europe's population, succumbed to the plague.
It took centuries for doctors to fully understand what caused the plague.
In 1894, scientists discovered the bacteria behind the plague outbreaks.
That discovery changed the world. It helped shape modern medicine and public health.
Why was the Black Death so deadly? Great question. Basically because there's no antibiotics. That's it.
The plague showed no mercy. If it kept spreading at the same rate for a few more years, humanity might not have survived. This next story reveals how technology almost destroyed life as we know it. The countdown to doomsday. December 31st, 1999 was more than New Year's Eve. To many people, it was the day modern civilization would collapse.
Elevators may stop. Heat may vanish. Credit cards and ATMs may cease to function.
People were panicking, but they were also preparing. Families stocked up on canned food. Others hid in underground shelters.
I know
Some
about this
even
one. I
bought
heard about it.
firearms for protection. It was the most anxious night in modern history. And it was all because of a computer glitch called the Y2K bug. In the 1970s, computers were very different from what we have today. They were huge, slow, and extremely expensive. One of the highest costs was storage. At the time, data storage in computers was expensive and took a lot of space. To save money,
what I heard is a lot of it had to do with calendars too, because a lot of them were based around from one, I forgot, it was something to do with math, and they end at 2000. So basically everything was crashing as soon as 2000 came around. That's what I heard about. That's what I heard.
Programmers made a decision. Computers would only store the last 2 digits of each year.
Programmers only used 2 digits for 2 reasons. One, they didn't have a lot of memory space for their programs, and secondly, they never imagined their software would last as long as it did.
So the year 1975 was stored as 75. 1989 became 89. For decades, this caused no problems, and society became dependent on computers. Hospitals used computers to monitor patients. Power plants relied on them to generate electricity. Planes depended on software to fly. Even nuclear weapons contained millions of lines of computer code. Simply put, computers ran the world. Then in the early 1990s, someone asked a shocking question.
Why use 4 numbers when you only need 2? And then they recognize, what date is the computer going to think it is when we get to 2000?
The answer was alarming. Computers would record the year 2000 as 00. But to a computer, 00 also meant 1900. That meant time would jump backwards by 100 years. And that jump would make millions of computers glitch and crash all at once. The potential damage could be catastrophic. Most people had no idea this problem existed. Then in 1993, a software expert published an article warning about the glitch. People read it and panicked. The media amplified the fear.
Now, the federal government is comparing Y2K to a huge natural disaster, like an earthquake, a hurricane, or a tornado.
Hollywood released movies depicting worst-case scenarios.
Y2K, the movie.
There was even a documentary titled Y2K Family Survival Guide.
Oh, hell, yo, they're not helping at all. They're not helping at all.
Ways. Some got protection.
I've got a revolver right now, but I wanted something more.
Others bought enough food to last a year. Religious groups prayed for God's mercy. Even business owners saw an opportunity to profit.
Call now and order your ultimate Y2K survival kit.
But while the world panicked, programmers were trying to solve the problem. Every 2-digit year had to be found and rewritten, and it all had to be done before midnight on December 31st, 1999. It was a race against time. Soon, that day was here. December 31st, 1999. Governments around the world were on high alert.
Behind me, you've got representatives of all the government departments here, and they're waiting anxiously. The Department of Health, the DTI, the Treasury.
As if it's one glitch, if it's one mess up, it's finished.
Fears of the Y2K bug are keeping many people grounded, and most say they'll settle for being close to home with family and friends.
Eventually, midnight arrived, and the world didn't end.
What happened when the clock struck midnight on January 1st, 2000? everything actually turned out to be just fine.
But this was not luck. During the 2 years leading up to Y2K, IT professionals spent an average of 70 hours a week rewriting code. It cost between $300 to $600 billion to fix potential problems, but their hard work paid off. Planes kept flying, banks stayed open, hospitals kept running, and the Y2K bug did not destroy the world. This next chapter was undoubtedly the deadliest conflict in human history. The war that almost ended civilization. A world war is exactly what it sounds like. It's a time when countries in nearly every part of the world are pulled into fighting. So far, it's happened twice. Both times, the destruction was massive. Engineers invented new weapons, scientists created deadly poisons, spies were sent behind enemy lines. As bodies piled up, it felt like humanity might destroy itself. During the First World War, more than 15 million lives were lost.
The First World War became what we would call a total war. These nations pitted against each other, millions of men fighting on land, on the sea, in the air.
However, it was the Second World War that almost destroyed civilization. By the time it ended, it wiped out roughly 3% of the world's population, but it could have been much more. It began when Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany. He wanted to dominate the world,
declaring that the Germans were a superior race that needed living space. Lebensraum. Hitler began to rebuild the German military.
German forces invaded nearby countries. Other nations tried to stop him. Soon it became a global conflict. Millions of innocent people were taken to prison camps.
A lot right
Food
now.
became scarce. Civilians lived in constant fear. As the war dragged on, many believed the only way to stop it was to remove the man at the center of it all.
Bro, a lot of people be saying, dang, I wish I wasn't born in this time. I wish I wasn't born in this time. So many people are like so clueless to how lucky we are that we're born during this time, buddy. Oh, I can't bear another world war. I can't bear another world war. Hey, I can't bear another world war. Don't start anything. Not you. No, not you. You can stop. Yes, not you. I'm talking to you. Yes, you. Don't fucking do anything stupid. Before I pump fake you, dumbass.
Around the world planned ways to assassinate Adolf Hitler, but somehow he kept surviving. One attempt happened in Munich. Hitler was scheduled to give a speech. Before the event, a man planted an explosive device near the stage.
Damn, he looks like
timed
Superman.
it to go off while Hitler was speaking, but Hitler left the building a few minutes early. By the time the explosion occurred, he was long gone. Another time, even Hitler's own officers tried to end him. The most serious attempt happened in July 1944. A German officer carried a briefcase into a meeting with Hitler. Inside was a bomb.
He placed a briefcase with an explosive device next to Hitler and left.
Hitler and his generals were in the room unaware of the danger. Minutes later, the device went off. Several people lost their lives, but Hitler survived again.
A heavy oak table shielded Hitler at the moment of the explosion.
After the incident, Hitler became paranoid. He ordered mass arrests. Around 5,000 people suspected of plotting against him were arrested. In total, there were at least 42 attempts involving poison, snipers, and bombs. Each one failed. Eventually, Hitler convinced himself that he was protected by fate. That confidence made him careless, and he made terrible decisions. By 1945, Germany was defeated, but in the Pacific, the war was still raging. Then, the deadliest strike of the conflict occurred. In August 1945, atomic bombs were dropped on Japan. A witness described the blast as something out of hell.
The flash radiation of heat from the blast scorched hillsides as far as 8,000 feet away from ground zero.
Thankfully, the war ended before more nukes could be used, because experts warned that a nuclear war would lead to the total extinction of human civilization. World War II lasted 6 years. By the end, the world was in ruins. 60 million lives were lost. Nothing since has reached that level of destruction. This next chapter explores a devastating natural disaster you probably never heard of. The year the sun disappeared.
What the
Volcanoes
fuck?
erupt all the time, and most people barely notice. But in 1815, one blast was so powerful it nearly ended the world. It didn't just destroy land, it poisoned the sky. The sun disappeared, crops failed, and the earth began to freeze. For an entire year, many were sure the end was here. The story begins on the island of Sumbawa in present-day Indonesia. The people there were farmers and fishermen. Their lives depended on sunlight, rain, and healthy crops. At the center of the island stood Mount Tambora. For generations, the mountain was quiet.
Prior to Mount Tambora blowing its top, no one even realized that it was a volcano.
People were so comfortable that they built villages around it. Children grew up playing on the slopes. But deep inside the mountain, pressure was growing. By 1815, Tambora could no longer hold it in. It erupted. Hot lava spewed from the volcano.
The blast caused earthquakes, tsunamis, and pyroclastic flows that decimated the land and took tens of thousands of Indonesian lives.
Witnesses described the eruption as a flowing mass of liquid fire. Thousands of lives were lost. Nearby villages were destroyed. But this local destruction wasn't what nearly ended humanity. The real danger was invisible. Mount Tambora's eruption polluted the sky.
The eruption spewed an unimaginable volume of ash and tens of millions of tons of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere.
The ash and sulfur gases were
I
so
remember this
high
from
that
geography.
rain couldn't wash them away.
The ash cloud generated by the volcano made its way to the stratosphere, reflecting incoming sunlight and cooling the Earth.
Those particles spread and blocked substantial amounts of sunlight from reaching Earth's surface. Less sunlight meant less heat. Slowly, the planet began to cool. At first, people only noticed colder days, but within months, it became clear something was very wrong because the weather stopped making sense. 1816 became known as the year without a summer because that year, the seasons were unpredictable. Snow fell in June. The frost destroyed crops in July. By August, the fields were frozen, and there was no summer that year.
Europe, China, and even North America all experienced below average temperatures that year, and entire harvests were ruined.
Food shortages spread across the world. People went hungry. In some areas, riots even broke out. In Asia, heavy rains caused floods. And in India, new diseases began to spread. It was chaos. All because one volcano erupted. Thankfully, the effects didn't last forever. Over time, the ash and sulfur slowly fell back to Earth. Sunlight returned, temperatures slowly rose. By 1818, the seasons were acting normally again. Crops grew back and foods returned. Against the odds, humanity survived. This next chapter is about a man who had a 50-50 chance of saving the world, and he guessed right.
What?
How one man saved the world. In most jobs, making a mistake can get someone fired. At worst, a company loses money. But in September 1983, one man was tempted to make a mistake at work. And if he did, the world would have gone up in flames.
Oh, like the plane guy we were talking about earlier.
His name was Stanislav Petrov. He was a lieutenant colonel working in a Soviet military command center. His job was to monitor an early missile warning system. The system scanned the skies for missiles heading toward the Soviet Union. If it detected an attack, Petrov had to immediately report it to his superiors. Soviet leaders would then decide whether to fire their own nuclear weapons at the enemy. Petrov's job was crucial. If a real attack happened and he didn't report it, millions could die. If he treated a false alarm as real, the result could be the same. On September 26, 1983, Petrov arrived for a shift like any other day. He sat at his console and reviewed some files. Suddenly, the alarms went off. The system detected a missile launch.
The siren sounded very loudly, and I just sat there for a few seconds, staring at the screen with the word launch displayed in bold red letters.
Petrov checked the screen. It showed 5 missiles heading toward the Soviet Union. Petrov knew the procedure. He was supposed to report the alert immediately, but he didn't. He kept staring at the screen and started thinking, why only 5 missiles? A real nuclear strike would begin with hundreds. It would be designed to destroy the country in one massive hit. Petrov also knew the missile warning system was not 100% foolproof. It could potentially have an error.
He had a choice to make. Should he pick up the phone and advise a retaliation strike against the United States? He doesn't have much time to make a decision.
Petrov felt he needed more information. He remembered that ground-based radar could confirm incoming missiles. He checked the radar reports. It showed no missiles. At that point, Petrov had only seconds to make a decision. If he reported the attack as real and it wasn't, the Soviet Union might launch its own missiles. The United States would retaliate, and the world could end in a nuclear war. Petrov made his choice.
And then I made my decision. I would not trust the computer. I picked up the telephone handset, spoke to my superiors, and reported that the alarm was false.
After reporting that the system was giving false information, Petrov waited. If he was wrong, he would know soon. A nuclear strike would hit within minutes. 23 minutes later, nothing had happened. The early missile warning system was wrong. Those 5 missiles didn't exist. Later, investigations revealed the false alert was caused by a malfunction of the satellite. The satellite mistook sunlight reflecting off the cloud clouds for missiles. Petrov's commanders never rewarded him for saving the world from nuclear war. For years, no one outside the military even knew what happened. Almost a decade later, a former commander revealed the story in an interview. Western media picked it up and reporters began searching for Petrov. By then, he was an old man living in a small apartment. Before long, he became known as the man who saved the world.
Petrov received hundreds of letters of recognition from all over Europe, but
Big
he
W,
never
Big
understood
W.
why. He said
Deserves it.
he had just been doing his job.
Hollywood made films and documentaries about him. He received an award at the United Nations. He was celebrated as a hero until his last breath.
The Soviet colonel who famously saved the world from nuclear war has passed away.
The scariest part about these near extinction events is that most people have no idea.
Bro, watch it.
close we
He's so
came
cool with his
to the
outros.
end. We walk through
I'm
life
prepared.
thinking we're safe, but the truth is we are more fragile.
Hit
than
me
we
with the
think.
transition.
So my friends, be grateful for everything you have today, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Visual venture.
Ah,
Wait,
thank you
go,
so
make
much,
sure you guys
Vivi.
watch
Ah, thank you, Vivi. It's nice seeing you again. And you know who else is nice seeing again? You, YouTube. I love you guys. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Check out the original creator. I love seeing you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.